You know, I think we've reached the point where I can ask, who even gives a shit? Like, we know who Thomas Rhett is at this point, we know his playbook, the sappy Maroon 5 Ed Sheeran great value brand star who's just stuck in the country genre. How this man makes pretty blatant pop songs for some reason that get passed off as country albums. Like, they nominated Life Changes for Best Country Album at the Grammys. They gave Casey Musgraves rightful flack, but this? Getting called country is such a complete and utter joke. He then released country again because apparently he knew his last albums were not country at all. And of course, this album was just the same scheduled album he was set to release. They just added fiddle in like 2 songs and made the rest of the songs sound more mellow and serious. Nothing about this album had anything to do with being country again, or at least the proper definition. I didn't really like this album then, and I still don't like it now. It's about as mediocre as I remember. And now he's back with another standard released album, and whoopsie, not a lot of people like it. Apparently people thought Thomas Rhett was finally gonna be good and make amazing pop country, and like, no, I did not have my expectations set that high because it was stupid. None of these pre-releases were actually that good, and while some of them were tolerable, they just were not worth much of anything, as I could find what Thomas was doing anywhere else, but with far more passion and creativity put into it. So I didn't care that much and expected a nothing burger album that didn't offend me or make me feel in any shape and form, but now it's here. And it's terrible, leaving those optimistic disappointed, and yet people still find ways to inflate the good stuff and get disappointed by the bad. And for a while, I've seen it as an anomaly, but only now in a post-country stuff age can I really see why this happened. Thomas Rhett has always appeared better than most mainstream artists because he always associates and is compared to the worst. Like, by comparison, if you were to put Thomas Rhett with, I don't know, Sean Stamali, I would absolutely choose Thomas in a heartbeat. There's so much garbage and mediocrity circling through that when Thomas pushes a single that's semi-mature like Country Again or Remember You Young, people just settle for it. They settle for mediocrity because there's nothing else to do. And when you finally get a good Thomas Rhett song like every 15 attempts like Life Changes or Growing Up, people always inflate the quality of Thomas. Like, wow, Thomas Rhett put out Song of the Year with a 7 out of 10 song with a kindergarten grade harmonica. Oh wow, he sung a mediocre song on a serious subject. When you actually compare Thomas to the good artists, you begin to see how there's nothing that good or exceptional about him. Parenting songs, Eric Church and Luke Bryan. Songs on Growing Up, Ashley McBride. I can get far better stuff from these elements than just the most shallow contemporary artist in the mainstream. I can't believe I ranted this long without actually talking about the album. This album is very, very bad. I can definitely say that all the pre-release material given beforehand is the only things actually worth something, and they're mostly mediocre anyway. I think the first thing I grasped upon is just how awful the mastering on this thing is. It's so in your face, it's kind of ridiculous, just booming synths without any texture or flavor to it. It happens so much that it makes me want to die. For songs designed to be energetic, they're just so dull. Melodically, I forgot what half of these songs sounded like, and I listened to this thing front to back 4 times. The only one that definitely stuck in my head was Mama's Front Door, not because it was good or anything, but it's the same one Thomas uses for these songs that act like they're so deep when they're as deep as a puddle. The one that easily comes to mind is Remember You Young. Plays them side by side and you see what I mean. I could probably name more stuff like half of Country Again, but I don't even care. I'm not invested in this dude's artistry, so let's move on. There's some unnecessary instrumental elements as well. Not like genre fusions, they just add electric guitar solos in songs that clearly don't need them and clash insanely hard with the aesthetic the songs are going for. Like Death Row seems like it's gonna be the annual stripped back mellow song that appears on every Thomas Rhett album, but then it adds unnecessary filters and synths. Like, well, why did you add this? It takes away from the admittingly good premise and makes it seem like a kids bop song. Death Row is one of the few songs that are passable. It's about how Thomas and friends went to sing for prisoners, which is a nice thing to do, although I can't imagine it went down like this. Thomas and Tyler Hubbard's performances were forgettable and neither added anything that really affected them. Russell Dickerson shows up for one verse. I'm not joking. As a whole, just a massive waste for an actually good premise. There's a bizarre number of songs about drinking beer on this thing, as if we needed more of those upbeat drinking songs. They're literally the same songs and talk about wanting beer and partying. Riley Green shows up on one of them and does nothing worthwhile and references It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere, an infinitely better drinking song in every conceivable way. My mind instantly went to that great drinking song to get away from this bleak experience. Also on the LP is a song called Bass Pro Hat, where Thomas argues he and his whole family, the ones who spend tropical vacations with Ashton Kutcher, are rednecks because they sat on a tractor once while wearing a Bass Pro Hat. Yeah, you're really showing how authentic you are, Tom. Oh boy, Thomas Rhett talks about his wife again for the millionth time, about how she has blonde hair and green eyes. That's the extent of their romantic relationship with each other, not just on this album, but their entire discography. Thomas literally has no way of describing the romanticism beyond these two physical appearances. Right after I was done with this album, I immediately put on Bo Burnham's Repeat Stuff because it just calls out this stuff perfectly, in contrast to some of the best romances ever put into a song. Katy Perry showed up and basically contributed nothing. I legit forgot she was on this album and thought it was some other person like Mackenzie Porter or Carrie Underwood. They made Katy Perry sound forgettable. I cannot believe I have to say that. Another thing that bugged me is, what is this album even trying to say? This is just a playlist of a bunch of random songs, and the closest thing to a connective tissue are the bland-ass beer songs. Apparently the goal is to talk about where they started. Oh my god, you guys, Thomas Rhett reflects on his roots and where he comes from for the mother-flipping fourth time. I swear to god, these albums are literally the same. They explore the same goddamn theme, and I'm just bored and tired at this point. They keep pushing the same buttons and have different names and maybe some slight adjustments. It's an awful release, especially due to the redundancies of the themes, melodic, and music structure. Everyone kept telling me in anticipation that the storytelling songs are good. They're not, and I think I can finally understand why. It's because Thomas Rhett is a one-dimensional vocalist. He has that one emotional tone, and that's it, and uses it on this entire album. There's no heightened sense of tension, there's no rise in drama, there's nothing on this guy's voice. There's also this insistence to remind you of the previous elements in his storytelling that you forget it's a storytelling song in the first place. Take Ian No's latest album, River Fools. Ian raises his voice and brings it down quite dramatically. He pushes the story forward, knowing you have the mental capacity to move along with it, adding this immersiveness to each story he weaves. You picture places, people, and above all the emotional response and resonance above all else. Thomas's stories may have relatable elements, but they're so mediocre and don't breathe life at all. Ian is one of the best storytellers of this generation, and the stories here work and soar to insane highs, unlike this fourth installment of the same album being done since 2017. I just don't care anymore. Nothing in this album piqued my interest, not even Angels, which is easily the most overrated song of the year. Thomas Rhett is a brand at this point, rushing out the same material over and over, thinking these small hints of country elements will save it, and they don't. I haven't gotten this little out of an album in so long. At least I'll remember how awful the Kid Rock album was. Here, I felt nothing. It is nothing and has nothing to say. I'm giving Thomas Rhett's Where We Started a strong 3 out of 10. Who gives a shit? Who can save me after all this intense mediocrity?